Hey guys, what's up? This is Joe from Joe's Corner and TCG Scrubs, and I'm here today to get you guys interested in the new the new set that's coming out, Strangers of New Valhalla. It's gonna be really great. So I'm gonna try and get you up to date on some what you're gonna expect in pre-release and kind of that kind of deal. So before I'll kind of talk a little bit about what you're gonna expect when you get in the store and stuff. So basically, hopefully this video will get ready for pre-release, and here's what you're gonna expect. So your stores hopefully will be hosting a pre-release, and you'll be getting a large white box that contains 72 booster packs, 12 promos, and 2 playmats. So they'll distribute to each player 6 packs in which you'll open them up, and you'll attempt to construct a deck out of those cards. Hopefully the video will help you kind of know what to look for and know what's going to be in the set and what to watch out for. So as a side note, you'll also be getting a Neo Berserk Dragon as a promo, but you can't use them, obviously. It's only cards that you use that come from your packs. So just remember to build within the required minimums of 25 to 60 card main decks, and you'll have 8 to 20 card Magic Stone decks, which is really nice for Magic for fixing your mana base and stuff like that. You can use any of the 3 available draft rulers as your ruler. I went over those in the previous primer video. It's pretty basic. You basically have 3 different rulers, and they will all do different things. One of them gives you better access to better mana for your rune deck and more divinity, but you don't have as many limited counters, which helps you fix your will colors. The other one is like kind of medium ground, and then the last one has a lower divinity, but it has a lot of color fixing with limited counters. So I'll put something up on the screen so you guys can kind of visualize it. Yeah. So your LGS should provide you with stones or your stone base, but it's always good to bring your own mana or bring your own stones or bring little Pokemon energy color or whatever mana, lands for magic, anything that you can use, and maybe you can lend out to other people so that enough people will have lands if maybe you're kind of the only one running this kind of deal. But yeah, if you need more information on what you want to take with you, like sleeves, dice, stuff like that, we'll have a link to Colin's little pre-release video other primer in the description. And so now that I've gotten all the stuff Oscar wanted me to get out of the way, we're gonna get to what I wanted to talk about, which is the actual cards and the cool pre-release stuff. So the first thing I wanted to go over, I have a little bit of a cheat sheet here that I lost my page. The first thing I wanted to go over real quick, I'm going to do kind of what's going to be in your rune deck and your opponent's rune deck, what you might want, what you'll be watching out for, and knowing that, because you want to know what they have in the rune deck when you face them. So I'll go over the rune deck, and then I'll go over the cards that I think are really good or pretty solid, my thoughts on them, and then I'll go over like maybe 1 or 2 other things that I think are kind of important. So first, let's look at the rune deck though. Bring it up on the screen here. I'm basically going to go through and just say my thoughts on some of the runes, what you can expect. Barrier of Faith is a 1-drop, Divinity 1, quick cast, prevent all damage would be dealt by chance until end of turn. This one isn't that great. People might run it because let's be honest, you're probably going to be struggling to make a rune deck, but excuse me, this one isn't that great. It's just okay, but doesn't impact the game too much. Next we have Blade of Faith. I actually think this is still obviously it's a chance / master rune. You pay 3 less if your ruler is Brunhild. Obviously you cannot do this in limited, but I still think this is a pretty solid 4-cost removal. Probably playable in both your main deck and in your and in your actual rune deck. So you should definitely watch out for this. 4-mana removal is kind of It's pretty good for limited format, especially sealed. It's decently costed, and this is a good one because it just removes target resonator from the game. So this is a solid one. People will probably definitely play that. Next we have the Battle of Sun and Moon. It's a Divinity 2 quick cast. You pay 1 white more to play this card from Rune area. Recover 2 target resonators. They gain plus 200 plus 400 until end of turn. This is really expensive. People might still play it. The difficulty with this is obviously that it's going to be a combat trick, and you can really mess up some of your opponents with it. But it's okay. The Stranger from Re-Earth, it's a 4-cost Divinity 3. You pay 1 less. You may pay 1 less to play this card from Rune area. You look at the top 5 cards of your deck. You may put a Fairy Tale Resonator from among them into the field. Put the rest on the bottom of your deck in a random order. If no Resonator is put into the field this way, recover up to 3 target Magic Stones. This one is... it's okay. It's going to be hard to hit some of those good Fairy Tales. I don't know if anyone's really going to be running this, but you know, just so information that you guys can have that you know what's in their deck. We're going to have All Under Heaven Shall Perish, 4-cost Divinity 2. You pay 1 red more to play this card from Rune area, pretty expensive. This card deals 500 damage to each resonator your opponent controls. If your life is 1,000 or less, this card deals 1,000 damage instead. Now this is a pretty decent one, and one you'll have to watch out for. You don't want to build up too big of a board presence with, you know, stuff that's maybe less than 500 defense, because this is going to be a board wipe at 5 mana that people are probably definitely going to play in limited, so watch out for that. We have Sand Awakening, Divinity 1, quick cast. You may pay 1 red less to play this card from a Rune area. Target resonator gains plus 200 plus 600 until end of turn. If it's a fire resonator, it gains plus 400 plus 800 instead. Now this is a very important one, and this is actually something that if they pull it, they'll probably play in any deck that they make, because it's flexible in that you only have to pay a colorless will for this. So this is a really nasty combat trick that you can put into any Rune area in limited, and it'll be a really good combat trick. If it's a fire resonator, it'll be better, but this will probably be in a lot of people's Rune decks, and for 1 colorless mana, it'll be really flexible, and people will definitely splash this in their Rune decks if they pulled it. Next we have Sandora's Invasion. It's a 5-cost Divinity 3. You may pay 1 less to play this card from a Rune area. You look at the top 5 cards of your deck. You may put a fire resonator with total cost 1, 2, and then 3 from among them into the field. It is 1 or 2, 2 or 3. It's kind of you have a lot of options there. You put the rest on the bottom of your deck in a random order. I'm gonna start speeding up because I usually go really long on these, and I don't want to take too much time. So the 3 Kingdoms Partition Plan, Divinity 2, 5-cost, Chant Master Rune. You may pay 3 less to play this card if your jailer is Fuji. Obviously you cannot. You don't get that in limited. Separate all resonators your opponent controls into 3 piles. Your opponent chooses 1 pile and banishes the rest. This card is maybe okay in limited. It's just really frustrating, and I don't know, it's a little expensive, but people probably run it. Diverse Evolution, 3-cost Divinity 2. You may pay 1 water less to play this card from a Rune area. Target up to X resonators you control, where X is a number of different races among resonators you control. Put a +1/+1 counter on the first, then repeat this process for each target past the first, adding a +1/+1 counter each time. For example, put 2 counters on the second, 3 on the third, 4 on the fourth, etc. Now, actually, we'll really like this card for limited. You're gonna have a large mismatch of resonators, and it's gonna be really easy to just start stacking up all those different races, and this gets a lot of different counters on your guys. And in limited, you're just gonna have so many different types of resonators, and so it'll be good. Watch out for this one; it'll be solid. Next, we have Mystery Box, 7-cost Divinity 3. Reveal the top 5 cards of your deck. Put all non-chant cards from among them into the field, and the rest into your graveyard. If this card is awakened, players cannot chase to it. This one might not see too much play, but it is pretty scary. Puts just a lot of stuff from the top 5 cards into your into the field. It's a rune, so people will probably try and play this late game, so just watch out for it. We have Skynet, 5 cost, ability 2. You may pay 2 less to play this card. If your Jiro is Arthur, you will not get that. This card deals damage equal to the total attack of machine resonators you control, divided as you choose to any number of target resonators your opponent controls. I don't see this being played at all, unless somebody drafted a really good machine deck, which isn't really possible, I believe, because there's not a lot of machines in this sealed. So I honestly wouldn't even bother with that. But next we have Teleport, 4 cost, ability 2. Reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a resonator, put it into the field. This is very interesting. Some people might play it, they might not. It seems a little janky because there's not really good ways to look at the top card of your deck in this set without very specific cards. So you either miss or you don't. Next we have Bullet Ball, Thunderclap. Now we're getting into green. Divinity 2, quick cast. As an additional cost to play this card, banish your resonator. This card deals damage equal to the banished resonator's attack to target resonator. If this card is awake, and it deals that much damage to that target and to your opponent instead. So this is kind of like Thud and Magic, just a little bit. I'm actually kind of okay with this card in your Rune deck. Not really sure I like it outside of your Rune deck because it ends up being like a 2-for-1, and that's just a little frustrating. The Awakening is actually pretty solid, and if you do play this, if you do get this played in your Rune area, you can blow something up and then deal a lot of damage to your opponent for some kind of last swing. So next we have Friend Calling Whistle, 1 green, Divinity 1, Chant Rune. Quick cast, you pay 1 more to play this card from Rune area. Search your deck for a ninja, reveal it, and put it into your hand, then shuffle your deck. There's only 2 ninjas in this set, so you might see this, you might not. Who knows? It's really up to what people were able to get and whether or not they think bringing up. I think it's just Tsunade and the ninja students. And so if you want to get one of those, it's okay then. But otherwise, I probably wouldn't bother too much about it. Finally, we have Table Flip. I think this is finally, but you definitely have to watch out for Table Flip. It's still going to be 4 cost, but it's still a really good, combat trick. It's still really solid to prevent burn. And honestly, people will most definitely play it in their Rune deck. With all the options, Table Flip is actually a pretty good one. Even with the added cost, it's pretty solid. Oh, we have one last one. The Unsealing of God. It is a Divinity 1, Destroy Target edition. Now, I'm not really that impressed by this card. People might play it. There's not really a lot of additions you need to hit, besides maybe one that I think is actually really important to hit, but I'll get into that later. Who knows? I think this could be pretty solid, but not really. I think that's it. Oh, no, we have black. Of course we have black. 5 cost, Chaining Hatred. This is actually a pretty good one. You pay 1 darkness more to play this card from a Rune area. Divinity 2. You target 3 resonators. The first gains -8/-8, the second 6 -6/-6, and the third -4/-4. And this is a really good, this kind of works as a low-key board wipe. You can, not really one to watch out for since it's so expensive, but it'll be there. Power of Immortality, Divinity 1, 2 cost. This is a good one, actually. You may pay 1 less to play this card from Rune area, so it's actually just 1 black, which is really good. Target resonator gains +4/+0, and when this card is put into a graveyard from the field, put it into the field rested under its owner's control until end of turn. So basically, if you try and kill something, they can cast this to save it. If you try and trade with them, they can cast this, trade with your creature, and then play it. This is actually a really good, really scary combat trick that I would definitely watch out for. This is gonna mess up a couple people, but just watch out for it. And if eventually you have to get hit by it sometimes. But anyways. We have another one that I really like, Ruined Earth. It's a 5 cost, Divinity 2. You may pay 1 void less to play this card from a Rune area, so it'll only cost 4, which is really good. Destroy target magic stone, resonators your opponent controls, gains -4/-4 until end of turn. Now this is going to be a really good one. A lot of people will probably play it. It's very solid for it's very simple. It's kind of board wipe, kind of not board wipe. Really softens up your opponent's field when you want to swing into them, and it's scary, you know, it puts you a stone behind, which in limited it's going to be pretty good. And finally, we have Soul Prison, 6 cost, Divinity 3. Target resonator gains -0, -1,000 until end of turn. When it is put into a graveyard this turn, put it into the field under your control. This is a really nice one. It gives you a really big swing, which I think is very important. And overall, I think it's just a pretty good one. Not much you can do about it when it hits you, but you know, it's there. Just, you know, trying to make you guys aware. And then, without further ado, since I'm trying to run this along, let's get into what cards I actually think are pretty decent, that you should be looking out for, and, you know, stuff that you're like, that will probably be a little scary to play against. So the first card on my list that I wanted to highlight was Alice. She's a 3 cost, 800/800 Fairy Tale Wanderer. When she enters a field, another target resonator gains +200, +0, and Eternal until end of turn, which is pretty good. When this card enters a field from your deck, put 2 +100/+100 counters on it. So it's going to be, well, there's almost no way for that to happen. You can hit it off of Strangers from Re-Earth, but I mean, this is kind of a hard card to, you know, hit off of that. So you might be able to get this, you might not. I really like her secondary effect. Banish this card, search your deck for a card named Alice Otherworldly Visitor, and put it in the field, then shuffle your deck. If you do run 2 of these, then that's, you know, could be a solid play if she's getting destroyed, something like that. I think she's solid though. She has good stat lines, and she gives something else +2/+0 in Eternal, which gives you a nice swing. Obviously, Blade of Faith I think is actually really well costed removal. And the thing I want to note about this set and about this pre-release is that there's really conditional removal. There's almost nothing that straight out destroys target resonators. I don't know if there's like 1 or 2 things that actually destroy resonators. This removes them from the game, which is even better. And the majority of it is either soft damage, like 600 damage, 400 damage here and there, or minus X, which usually is like -600 to 800. Not really a lot of stuff will go past like 1,000. So removal is going to be pretty hard to come by in this set, especially like hard removal like this. It's mostly going to be really soft or damage or stuff like that. So Blade of Faith is a good one. Even at 4 costs, I'd put it in your decks. I think it's good. Next we have Dark Alice Doll, 3 costs, 400/1,000. Fairy Tale Doll, Flying Drain. Whenever you gain life, this card deals 200 damage to target opponent. Or J Resonator, this ability triggers only once per turn. Now, obviously, she's really decently costed. She's a flyer. She's got 1,000 defense. She drains, which means you'll be gaining life, and she deals 200, and she actually deals like 600 damage whenever you attack directly. So she's even got a really good, you know, she's really got good stats. She'll be a good solid resonator for you to play. Messenger of the Sun, 200, 400. He's not too solid, but I like him. Whenever you play Rune, you draw a card, so he's a good, you know, possible 5 card draw mechanic. You can banish him, destroy target addition. That's really not going to come into play too much because there's not a lot of great additions in this set in pre-release, in my opinion. But I really like his ability to draw you cards. That's at least probably going to be 3 to 4 cards, hopefully, depending on what your divinity level is going to be, what ruler you're playing, and your rune deck. So he could be good though. I just like his draw engine. Now we get to obviously the best card in the entire set, Mistletoe. Maybe not the best card in the set, but the best card for pre-release, clearly, by far. So if you get her, I would 100% play her because I was, you know, looking through the set. There's only 3 to 4 cards that actually can destroy her and remove her. One is Blade of Faith, which we just saw. Another is Stormcat, which is like a 7 cost card. I'll get to it later. That deals 2,000 damage to target as Resonator. Another is Athenia, who makes you banish a Resonator, which means, to be honest, you're probably not going to be able to hit Mistletoe with that. and the other is Caspiel, which also makes you banish a Resonator, and you're probably not going to get her with that either. So really, Blade of Faith is the only thing that actually threatens her. Everything else cannot kill her. When she attacks, she will never take damage because she'll always be blocked. You'll always kill whatever gets blocked, which means she's unblockable. When she enters, you get to play your 2 less, play your next Rune this turn, which is amazing. She's 1200, so in like 3 turns, you're just gonna win the game because you just attack 3 times. And then on the graveyard on top, whenever you play a Rune from Rune area, to put target Resonator with total cost 3 or less from your graveyard into the field. This card, bar none, is the best card in the entire pre-release lineup. If you get her, you play her, because when you drop her onto the field, your opponent has to have Blade of Faith or 7 mana for Stormcat, or else they just lose. Like, it's crazy how there's nothing that threatens this card in pre-release right now. And she's cheap. She's 5 cost. All of her abilities are absolutely amazing. She's unblockable. She blocks everything. She is the best card in the set, bar none. And even if you don't really have white, just splash white and save all your limited counters for her. I'm telling you, play this card and she will win you pretty much every game you go into. Unless you're like really far behind and not, but you know, she's just an insane card. So, play her. Next we have Regenleaf. I think this guy's pretty good. He's flying. A lot of the flyers and a lot of the 5 cost cards are just going to be big enough to kind of do good stuff. Like, he's not that great, but he's an 800, 1500 flyer, and at the end of your turn, recover all Resonators you control, which is still a pretty decent effect. Actually really good in limited, but he's really solid. We're going to get into red. We have Gaze of the Fire Emperor. It's a 4 cost chant, deals 1200 damage to target Jade Resonator. Oh, you know what? This can also kill Mistletoe, actually. It's a good point. I didn't see this, but that's 4 mana. It's a pretty expensive, and it's just a regular chant, so not too scary. The only reason I put this in is, like I said, removal is really going to be hard to come by in this set, I believe. It's just there's not a lot of great options, and this is one of them. This is a I don't even really like this card except for the fact that it's removal, and you should play it because of that. Next we have Ma'at, Arbiter of Judgment. 1 cost, 100, 600. You can tap and pay a red to banish another Resonator, and she deals 600 damage to target Resonator. Or you can tap and pay 3 to banish her, and this card deals 800 damage to target opponent. I'm not really a big fan of this, actually, mainly because I don't like the card. Obviously, if you guys watched our spoiler videos, you would remember how opposed I was to it, but it's actually not terrible in limited, and I like both of her effects in limited, especially the last one is actually like a good 800 damage, like from behind. That's kind of unstoppable. So yeah. Now Neo Berserk Dragon is one I kind of struggled on. He's a 4 cost, 1800, flying swiftness. At the end of battle, if this card attacked or blocked, it deals 1000 damage to you and each Resonator. That means once he attacks, he kills himself, and he deals 1000 damage to you. Like, that's really bad. But if there's times where he really comes in handy, and the reason I put him in is because he is board wipe, and I love board wipe in limited, and I think it's really important that you can squeeze in that 1000 damage. Since he is flying in swiftness, he can come in and, you know, kind of surprise your opponent. So that's why he's in here. But I really struggled with putting him in because he has a lot of drawbacks. The main one being killing himself and dealing 1000 damage to you, which is really bad. So I wouldn't, if I got him, I wouldn't be incentivized to play him or play red just because of him. But if I was already in red and I got him, I would probably like slot one in, just so that at the end, you know, you can play him and hopefully, you know, do good. But it's actually the cool, really cool addition I was talking about that you might want to look out for. Ruins Beneath the Sands. It's a 2-cost red Ancient Ruins edition. At the end of your turn, this card deals 200 damage to target opponent or resonator. If there are 4 more runes revealed from your rune area, it deals 400 damage instead. Now I know that's not a lot of damage, but it starts pinging up and it starts accumulating. At turn 5, you've dealt 1,000 damage for doing nothing and having this edition just sit there. If you have 2 or 3 of these, maybe you might want to try and play like a really stally deck that you just play these and then you kind of try and stall out and you just win that way. Once you reveal 4 more runes and you've played your 4 runes, that's where I think it actually becomes really solid and a really good choice. So I'm actually a big fan of this card, and I really hope somebody gets this in their pool, and then they're like, oh man, I'm gonna play like 3 of these, and then they just destroy everybody, which would be really funny. But next we have Sand Awakening. It's a 2-cost divinity, divinity 1. I already talked about this. You pretty much put this in any rune deck that you have if you have the room. It's a really, really nasty combat trick, and it's colorless, 1 cost in your rune deck, which is super solid. It's still pretty okay in the main deck too, though. I would probably play it in the main deck as well. It's just a good combat trick, and protects you. Next we have Sandora's Invasion, 5 will, divinity 3, chant rune. You may pay 1 less for this card from rune area. I've kind of already described this. I actually like this a lot in your rune deck, even in the main deck a little bit. It brings in fire resonators with 1, 2, and 3 costs, which are abundant. So it kind of floods your field a little bit, which I think is pretty okay. So another thing you need to realize is that your main deck is going to be 25 cards. So right off the bat, this is looking through the top 20% of your deck. Yeah, that's right, math. So like you automatically get to look through 20% of your deck. Once you get kind of more into the mid game, where let's say you've drawn 4 or 5 cards, now you're looking at the top, like, I don't know, 28 to 30% of your deck, and that's a lot of cards to look at in limited. So it's a solid, I think a solid card with a good place in your deck. We also have Scales of the Ascendant. It's 3 costs. It kills something. That's pretty much it. Target 2 resonators, destroy 1 of them at random. Like I said, removal is kind of hard to come by, so this in limited is pretty decent. It's low cost. You can target 2 decent things and at least get 1 of them dead. So Surtur, the Sand Giant, 5 cost, all red, 1500, Sand Giant. Whenever this card is dealt damage, you may search your deck for a sand resident, total cost 3 or less, and put it in the field, then shuffle your deck. If you have 3 fire runes revealed, when it enters, this card deals 800 damage to each resonator. Now, I really like this card. It's a really good super rare from red. It's red's like kind of bomb in this set. Even without the sand resonator synergy, it's good. The runes, if you can get the runes, it's even better. The only issue I have with it is that it's really mana restrictive, and in sealed, this is gonna have people struggle a lot. And honestly, it's really hard to play. Like this, I think this would be probably too hard to play reliably. This might come out turn 7 or 8, just because you can't find the extra like 2 red sources that you need. So it's really frustrating, especially because obviously most of your sealed decks are going to be 2 or 3 colors, so it's just going to be difficult to play. So keep that in mind. We have Underhanded Assassin, 3 cost, 600, 900. Whenever this card blocks or is blocked by a resonator, this card gains +4/+4 until end of turn. This is a super low-key, crazy good card. Whenever it attacks and it's blocking or is blocked, it's actually an 1,000 attack resonator. It lets you get through damage because they won't want to block this. And so you still get 600 damage through to your opponent. It's just great. It's a great battler, and that's what limited is all about. It's about the battling, and like playing your resonators and battling it out. There's really down and dirty in sealed and stuff. Next, we have Diverse Evolution. 3 cost, Divinity 2. You may pay 1 waterless, play this card from a Rune area. Now, I already kind of described this. I actually think this is solid even in your main deck and in your Rune deck. And it's going to see a lot of good stuff happening in Sealed because of the like hodgepodge of resonators you're going to be having. You're probably going to have 3 to 4 races among all your resonators at some point, and because of that, this is going to be really solid. It's going to get your board up, get your board to be bigger, and if you have any flyers, you can stack all your good counters on that flyer. So really solid. This is one I actually really low-key think is good. Mermaid of the Misty Spring. It's a 2 cost, 200, 800, so it's really beefy. It's a mermaid. At the end of your turn, force C1. That's basically scry. What I really like about this is how it really smooths out your draws. Like, it lets you look at the top. It lets you peek at the top of your deck every turn, pretty much. Lets you filter down into stuff that you actually need, which in limited is really, really important. And this is really good. It's hard to remove too, because there's not a whole lot of good removal spells in this set. So, and you're probably not going to be attacking with her, obviously. So she just sits there and she lets you keep looking at cards, and I think that's really good. So, Mutation Slime, 4 cost, 900, 1,000. It's an ooze resonator. It gains all races resonating in your graveyard. For 1 blue, you can either gain +2, -2 until end of turn, -2, +2 until end of turn, or return it to its owner's hand. So this is very similar to Aetherling in Magic. He is really resilient, dodges a bunch of stuff. You can just return him. You can bounce him to your hand if he's threatened. You can win trades with stuff that don't trade as well as you, just by +2, -2ing him. You can get up to an 11, 800, which could be enough to kill something and live. It's just solid. It's a solid card. If somehow you get your damage in, like nothing gets blocked, you can just pump it 4 times and give it an extra 800 damage. So really flexible, super solid card. Definitely worth playing in your limited pool. I went too forward. Mystery Box. I think this card is cool. I kind of already went over why I liked it. It's a really good kind of bomb where you just play it and drop a bunch of resonators onto the field, hopefully. But I don't know. I like it. It's a cool card. Precision Guided Munition Skybeat. It's a 3 cost, 800, 800 machine resonator. With flying, machines you control with a +1/+1 counter on them gain flying. That effect is good. Obviously, it's even better if you have other machines. But I really just like it for its stat line. A 3 cost, 8/8 with flying is just really good anyways. So, definitely play that when you're looking for your cards. It's just a 3 cost 8/8s with flying are not to be trifled with. That's a lot of evasiveness and a lot of damage you can get to them. Next we have Schrodinger, the Harlequin of Phenomena. 0/100 Fairy Tale Wanderer. When he enters, remove target resonator in a graveyard from the game. If you do, this card becomes a copy of it and gains Mask of Mimeses. Mask of Mimeses. I know that's not how you say it, but whatever. You tap this card to remove target resonator in a graveyard from the game. If you do, this card becomes a copy of it and gains Mask of Mimeses. So basically, you play this card, you copy something in their graveyard or your graveyard, and then he becomes a copy of that resonator with the ability to continually tap himself and become different copies of different resonators in the graveyard. So I think this is obviously really good if you have other stuff for it to become, or if your opponent has any strong stuff for him to become. By himself, he's obviously terrible. And he just needs the right graveyard to really get going. So Skyfall, I really like this card, even without the 1 cost. It gains quick cast if you have a machine, if you control a machine. Return target resonator to its owner's hand. This is just good even if you don't have the machine resonator out. It's just a good 1 cost bounce. So definitely look into it. It's a nice card. Super Mobile Fortress Camelot. 6 cost, 12/12, machine, flying, enter. Return up to 2 target resonators for your opponent controls to their owner's hands. If you control a card named Guinevere, the Mobility Queen, destroy those resonators instead. Now, I did want to talk about the Guinevere package, as I call it. I don't think it's good. I don't think that you're probably going to be able to use it, because Guinevere, you need to remove 12 counters, and it's going to be ridiculously hard to get 12 counters on her just to get Camelot onto the field, and then it destroys 2 resonators, which is good. But it's not. Guinevere and maybe playing Camelot from your hand might be more doable. And then I don't know. It's really difficult. Probably won't happen, but if you have the combo and you want to think about playing it, then go for it. It's a good combo. It's pretty decent. It's just not something I would look at and, play over some of these other cards. Like going into blue just for this combo probably isn't worth it. But obviously the stat line of this guy just by himself is really good and will win you games, so that's good. But I just wanted to, comment about that synergy they have together, and that it's really hard to put together a deck like that. Speaking of synergy, we have Bunbuku, the legendary tea kettle. He's a 3-cost, 300, 1200 Tanuki beast. When this card is put into a graveyard from the field, you may put a beast from your hand into the field. Now, this guy is largely reliant on whether or not you have good beasts. He is a pretty good wall, which is nice, but he doesn't really do much by himself. I do like his synergy with, if he dies, you get to play more beasts from your hand, which is pretty cool. And there's some really good beasts, like Flying Squirrel. He's not that great, but he's all right. So 3 costs, 800, 800. You pay a green, and he gains -0, 0, -200, and flying until end of turn. Excuse me. The reason I think this is good is because an 800 damage flyer is pretty solid, and there's a lot of flying in this set though. But I still think it's worth it just to play him, and even though he hurts himself, he is worth it to kind of get fly over the opponent and get that 800 damage in. So he's not gonna break the game or anything, but he's a solid addition to the team. Liz, Sealed God of the Island, is actually a really good addition to the team. She's an 8-cost resonator normally, 1,000, 1,500. Elf resonator. You may pay 1 Void Lust to play this card for each resonator you control, which is really good. Other resonators you control gain barrier, which is also very excellent. And with the Rune of 3 and enter, put target non-Magic Stone, non-resonator card from your graveyard into your hand, which means she can recycle stuff from your graveyard. Now, I really like her because of just because she's becomes easier to play the more resonators you have, and in Sealed, she's gonna come down earlier than turn 8, obviously. There's a good chance you're gonna have a lot of resonators, and she's gonna be a decently costed reduction. So, and she is good by herself, and she gives everything barrier. So, really solid card. Speaking of, back to synergy, and we're gonna talk about Magalanica, I think is how you say it. The Ball Warrior. It's a 4-cost, 12/12 Mimi tribe, which is really good. But you play this card only if you control a Mimi tribe, which there's not a lot in this set. There's, I think, 3, and that includes him. So really think hard about whether or not you can play this guy. His entry ability is this card gains swiftness, precision, and cannot attack players until end of turn. And you can rest your covered resonator you control. This card gains +200, +200 until end of turn. Now this guy has really, really good stats. He has great stats. When he comes in, he gets swiftness, precision, so you can attack into something, and he's like a 4-cost removal on a body, which you can rest other guys you have and buff this guy off the face of the earth, and there's really a lot of good stuff about him. The only bad thing is that he's a complete dead card if you don't have your Mimi tribe out. And even if you do have like 2 or 3 Mimi tribes, you might not be able to play them in time for, where this guy will actually matter. Even though I think he'll kind of matter the whole game. But it's just this guy's such a dead card. And I would hate to have you guys, you know, have this card in your hand and just be looking for that Mimi Tribe member and you never get him. So, next we have Mole, King of Rare Beasts, which is, you know, the card that I really thought Bunbuku works with. He's a 2000, which is huge. 7 cost, which isn't even that unreasonable in limited. He enters and destroys target non-Magic Stone entity with total cost 4 or less, which is a great effect. Whenever he attacks other beasts you control, gain +5/+5 until end of turn. Now this guy, and if you have a couple beasts to supplement him with, he's awesome. He's super good. Even without other beasts to supplement him and synergize with, he's still really good. He's a great 7 cost card. He enters, he kills something, and he's a 20/20. Like, dude, this guy's pretty beast. So, yeah, he's really nice. There's like one card that can actually kill this guy. And well, there's like 3 cards. Mistletoe is obviously one. Like if this big old King of the Beast fights Mistletoe, he just loses, like everybody. But Blade of Faith is pretty much the only thing that actually can kill this guy, and a couple of the banish effects. But he's just strong. He's really strong. Speaking of strong, Ninja Students. This card will suck to fight against. 400/300 Cat Ninja with first strike. And you can tap 3 to put a +++ counter on this card. Now this is just scary. This is like facing this coming in, you know, like they drop this on their first turn and it'll take you like 2 or 3 turns to actually get something out that can deal with this. Because of its first strike, it can just kind of attack and not care. It's got really good stats, and excuse me, it has really good late game potential too, because you can start pumping it up and get it bigger and bigger and bigger. So excuse me, really solid card. Just play it anyways. It's just a too good of a card to not have in your green deck. Next we have Riku, Cat Tongued Tea Master. It's 5 cost, 1100, 1200. Cat Wanderer. Enter, look at the top 3 cards of your deck. You may put a Wind Resonator total cost 3 or less from among them into the field. Put the rest in the bottom of your deck in a random order. Now this is solid if you're having, if you mainly just have gotten a lot of wind cards, wind resonators. If you're kind of like 3 colors, maybe, I mean, this guy's still good to have just because he has a great stat line and he's pretty solid. But secondary effect is whenever another Wind Resonator enters a field under your control, put a T counter on this card. When this card is put into a graveyard from the field, you gain 400 life for each T counter that was on it. If there were 3 or more T counters, you draw a card. So he's just pretty solid all around. Has 3 really great effects. If you miss his enter ability, he's still just a pretty strong card. Yeah, this is Stormcat. This is the one I was referencing before. It's honestly not that good. It's a 6 cost chant. You can pay 1 less to play this card if you control ninjas. So if you control ninjas, maybe think about running this too. It does 2000 damage to target resonator, which is kind of important because it's the only way to deal with Mistletoe. It's the only way to deal with Mole, or one of the only ways to deal with Mole, the King of the Beasts. It's maybe a card you should probably put into your deck because 6 cost removal really sucks, but it's good that it handles a lot of the really scary threats that you can face in this sealed pool. So I don't know. I don't want to tell you guys to like put it in and then it just sucks and sits on in your hand the whole time. But it's worth a look. Speaking of worth a look, the 6 Jizo statues are really good. 1 cost, 600 yokai. The card cannot attack or block unless there are 6 or more +1/+1 counters on it. At end of turn, put a +1/+1 counter on this card. Now this guy is going to straight up completely wreck pre-release, in my opinion. He might actually be like the best pre-release card because he'll be an uncommon. People will get him a lot, and he just ramps up like a crazy monster. So the main thing to notice is that it says at end of turn. That means when I play him, it counts my turn, opponent's turn, my turn, opponent's turn, my turn, opponent's turn, and then I get to attack and block with him. And now he's at 12-12. And then it continues to count. So he's at 12-12 and he's attacking and doing stuff. And then it goes, my turn at the end of turn will be a 13-13. Opponent's turn 14-14. My turn 15-15. Opponent's turn 16-16. My turn 17-17. And he just becomes an unstoppable 6 Jesus statues monster. So this card is insanely good. Honestly, if I was playing pre-release and I got a couple of like good stuff and I was like, oh, maybe I'll go blue, green, or blue, black, and red, I don't know. And then I saw that I had this, I would definitely A, splash for it with my limited counters, and B, I would even like just want to go green just for this guy. Like, that's how good I think this is going to be. Especially with just not a lot of removal. He's just going to become giant in like 4 turns and 5 turns and then just kill stuff, and it's going to be scary. So if you can, deal with this as soon as he drops. Yeah, this is so good in limited, so good in the sealed format. Next we have Tsunade, Brawny Cat Ninja, 800-500, 2 cost, barrier chant. Now she's kind of low defense, but she has a huge giant attack, and she has barrier from chance, which is pretty decent. So she's really playable. I think she's pretty solid, and she hits really hard, like crazy hard. So let's get into some black cards though. And these are kind of the last of our cards, obviously, because we've gone through all the other colors. So Astema, the Returning of Hatred, 3 cost, 7/6, Fallen Angel Wanderer, Flying Enter. Your opponent loses 500 life. If there are 3 or more runes revealed from your rune area, you gain 500 life, which is nice. You pay 400 life, draw a card, play this ability only during your turn and only once per turn. Pay 1,000 life, your opponent loses 500 life, play this ability only during your turn and only once per turn. So I still really think this is an excellent card. It's a 3-drop. It's decent, has okay stats. It has flying. When it enters, your opponent loses 500 life, which is great. You can pay 1,000 life to do damage, but the main thing is that it's really excellent card draw. And like being able to draw yourself a card even at 400 life, I think is super worth it. And you just like, there's not a lot of card engines that you can go with in this set. So she's gonna get you a whole heaping hole full of card advantage. So really solid. Oh boy, another long one. Okay. Athenia, Sealed God of the Ruins, is also really good. She's a 5 cost, 12/10, human resonator. Enter, your opponent banishes a resonator. If they don't, they banish a magic stone. That's super good. On like, it's removal, banish resonator on a body, or you can target their magic stones. Super good. When this card is put into a graveyard from the field, your opponent banishes a non-J ruler entity. That's more J resonator, destruction. Well, not J / resonator, just resonator removal. But so she's like a double removal helping, and you can tap her, and resonators your opponent controls gain -2/-2 until end turn. If you have 4 more runes revealed, they get -4/-4 instead, which is actually really good board wipe. So she's really solid in this format. Like, she's a really good resonator. Probably one of the best options you can play. Making them banish stuff is just super good. So we also have Caspiel, the Fallen Angel Rebellion. He's a 6 cost, 12/10 flying Fallen Angel. Enter, each player banishes a resonator. He is terrible on his own because he'll kill himself. But if you have if you have another resonator to banish, he actually is pretty strong. Great stats. Flying is excellent, and removal on a body is really nice. Chaining Hatred, I kind of already talked about. It's just pretty solid. It's really expensive, but when you're in limited, you kind of do what you got to do. And probably wouldn't play this in the main deck. I probably would, honestly. It's good enough, and you'll probably hit enough stuff maybe. But yeah, I like it. It's a good card. Contract Demon, I think, is actually really solid. It's a 2 cost, 6/6. When it enters, you draw a card and you lose 400 life, which is fine. The card advantage is excellent, and once you have 2 darkness runes, he gains +2/+2, which means his stat line is actually pretty solid. So yeah. We have Corrupt Teachings. Corrupt Teachings is a 4-cost quick cast. Target resident you control gains +8, and target resident your opponent controls gains -8. What I really like about this is that it's a good combat trick. Is pretty much the only thing I actually like about this. It's not that strong, but I like it enough where it's like tricky enough, and the combat tricks are good, and there's not a lot in the set, so I'd probably play it. Next we have Dragon Zombie, 4-cost 600/600. It's a dragon / zombie, which is funny. Enter target resident gains -6/-6 until end of turn. Again, I think this is just removal, and I like it. It's really not it's terrible cost effectiveness, but just because of the ability to remove something and deal -6/-6 until end of turn is just too good for me to pass up. Next we have Graveyard Vampire. It's a 4-cost 600/700. Flying, remove 2 target resonators in your graveyard from the game. This card gains +4/+4 until end of turn. Play this ability only once per turn. Now I like this because it gives you fuel, you know, like once you're kind of running low, like maybe you're near the end game and you've just got Graveyard Vampire out, you're gonna have a lot of resonators in your graveyard that are just sitting there taking up space, and this guy kind of lets you fuel himself and get stronger and deal more damage and do something with those empty resonators. Speaking of graveyard resonators, we also have March of the Dead. It's a chant, 1-cost. Put target resonator with total cost 2 or less from your graveyard into the field. Put up to 1 second target resonator with total cost 2 or less from your graveyard into the field if this card was awakened. And it's 2 black to awaken it. So I actually really like this card. It's a 1-cost, which is excellent. Its awakening is absolutely excellent. This is just a really solid common, especially. Like, common is really important when you look at these cards. You know, what's the rarity and stuff. How likely am I going to get this in my sealed pool? There's a lot of really good targets at 2 or less cost. Yeah, it's just, I think this is just a really good card. For 3 mana, you get to replay 2 of your resonators. It's just pretty solid. I like this card. Orpheus, the Immortal Player, 600/500 zombie resonator. You pay a darkness, remove a resonator in your graveyard from the game, put a 2/2 darkness zombie resonator token into the field. Now, I like this card because similar to the last card, it kind of does something with those resonators that you're not doing anything with. Even something as simple as getting 2/2 zombie tokens is, you know, is enough to just kind of, it's enough of an effect that it will slowly kind of build up your board and let you do more stuff and, you know, attack in more to get 2 damage chips in or just blockers. The main issue is, like, he's not bad stat lines on his own, and the best part is that he lets you do stuff with your dead resonators that you wouldn't do at all anyways. So yeah, and you know, you're gonna have extra mana at points, at certain points. So Power of Immortality, I already went over this card. I think it's one of the best combat tricks in the set. It's super solid. It saves your dudes and is super good. Yeah. Ruined Earth, I already went over this card too. It's really nice board wipe. It softens up your opponent's resonators, which is super good, and it puts them a stone behind, so it's just all around great card. Soul Prison, I already went over this card as well. You obviously don't get this special effect, but you deal 1,000, you make something take 1,000 less defense, and you kill it, and then you get it, which is super good. And yeah, it's a good swing card. Especially, I would even probably play this in your main deck maybe, because I really like the ability where it gives you whatever you just killed. So that is pretty much it for cards that I really liked. I realized I closed my little notebook when I wasn't actually completely done. We're pretty much there though. The last thing I kind of wanted to get into was, you know, there's like a heroic spirits package in this set, and if you pull enough of them, they might be worth playing like all together. Personally, I don't think so, but just something to think about when you're looking through your pool and you're like, hey, wait, Joey didn't mention these heroic spirits. And that's because you need enough of them to actually make an impact, and I don't think that they're that good anyways. But if you get them and you're like, hey, wait, these actually synergize pretty well. They do synergize okay. So it's possible for you to look at them and kind of play them. But it's pretty much it. I've managed to ramble on again for about 50 minutes, which I was hoping I would get a little bit lower today for this primer. But, you know, there's always next pre-release where, you know, I can try and get us down to like 40 minutes or something. But I doubt it. Anyways, hope you guys, as always, really enjoy your pre-release. It's super fun. It'll be enjoyable, whatever happens. And you get a lot of good cards, and just play stuff that's fun and, you know, and you want to play. Like, if you want to play flying squirrels because it's a squirrel and you want to beat your opponent's face in with a squirrel, then don't listen to me. Play your, you know, giant flying squirrel card and have fun. This is Joe from Joe's Corner, and I'll see you guys next time.